anyone can start using a product. And if you become addicted because of the nicotine, it is very, very hard to stop. It is a choice. If someone wants to stop using a product, they need to have the motivation to do that. But giving them the resources, the tools, the support to be there for them, to help them through that, rather than just saying, don't vape, it's bad for you. You need to stop this. They do know they need to stop that, but it's a lot more challenging than, people think it is.
I'm your host, Jason Hopcus, and today we're diving into a thought provoking conversation about a topic that needs a lot more attention: teen vaping. Joining me today are Alissa Huff and Ashley Scollard, who are both community health educators for the Douglas County Health Department. Welcome, Ashley and Alissa, it's a pleasure to have you here today to join us for Nobody's Perfect Community.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jason. It's wonderful to be here.
Yes, thank you, Jason. We appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I'm so ready to have this conversation. But before we dive into it, tell us a little bit about your roles as community educators, just so our listeners understand, what do you guys actually do to show up and serve people in the community here in Colorado?
So as a community health educator, what we like to do is essentially make connections with the community. So we like to build partnerships. We like to just have those inroads with community members, different institutions throughout the county. We also, inherent in our title, our community health educator, we provide education resources to whatever the community is in need of. So we do a lot of education surrounding certain initiatives, tobacco or tobacco prevention and cessation. We do chronic disease management. We have some healthy aging and fall prevention initiatives for our older adult populations. And we also work with the mental health initiative to work on suicide prevention.
Right. Such important work. Ashley, did you have anything to add to that?
Alissa covered it very, very well, but it is like Alissa said, a lot of resource connection, seeing what the community needs, seeing how we can help get them the information that they need, and just to do our best to, help the community out with all those different needs. So it's wonderful.
I love that, and such important work. I mean, I really am seeing that as you guys have the boots on the ground to really connect with community members and understand like what's happening and what's going on with them in their day-to-day lives. And, the fact that Douglas County has been so responsive in showing up to meet those needs, I think that's really important work that you guys are doing. The conversation we're here to have today is about teen vaping and nicotine use. Let's make that even broader. And I know that this is a big conversation, but like for our listeners that may not understand how prevalent this is, can you give us some idea of like what are we facing here with teen nicotine use?
So according to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, nationally, e-cigarette use among middle school and high school populations in 2024 is around 5.9%. And nicotine pouch use, which that's an emerging product, that is currently standing at about 1.8%. Here in our county, Douglas County, we have a little bit higher number regarding e-cigarette vape usage. It's about 12.2%. Traditional cigarette, your combustible cigarettes, that's about 3.3%.
Wow. So really in Douglas County, the youth that are being affected by this is significantly higher than what we're seeing across the nation. I know before we planned this conversation, we were talking about the stress that youth are feeling in Douglas County specifically that could be leading to some of these higher rates that we're seeing, the usage. Is that accurate?
It's very accurate, yes. I mean, there's a lot of different factors that play into why youth choose to vape and use those e-cigarettes and nicotine products. But Douglas County it's a wonderful community. It is also a very highly educated community where we've spoken with some of the youth before and done some focus groups. And the youth were saying there's a little bit more of a pressure and a stress to succeed, to get excellent grades, to be in sports as well, to just be an all-around amazing, almost perfect student, which is, like you said, nobody's perfect, but there is a lot of pressure there from, some of their families, the schools, just the community to try to succeed the most they possibly can. And so I think some of those stresses, it could lead the youth to turn to products like vapes and e-cigarettes and nicotine for that temporary stress relief. But as we're going to talk about a little bit more today, It might provide a very temporary stress relief, but then in the end causes more stress, more anxiety, a lot more issues for the youth as, they continue to develop.
Of course, as many things could. And I want to level set for anybody that's listening. When we decided the name for this podcast, it was built upon a previous podcast we had called Teen Talk with youth. And the thread that pulled through every conversation was this very thing you're talking about, this need to be perfect and achieve and do the right thing. And, really it felt like such an unspoken pressure in all the conversations that we're having. But for anybody that's listening, I want to say, I don't think that's a youth problem. I think that's a people problem. I mean, most of us show up wanting to put our best foot forward and achieve and do whatever we can to kind of show up in a way that may fall into a perfectionism category. So I think it's really important that we have these conversations, recognizing that while we're here to talk about youth today, I think people in general really struggle with this perfectionism piece. The thing that I'm left with, and I'm overwhelmed by the statistics that you shared with us here, but what role, obviously if stress is a contributing factor and there are other factors that are contributing to youth, engaging in some of these harmful practices, what role does peer pressure play in that? Like how much of this is about my friends are doing it, so I probably should too? Like, what are you seeing with regards to that in your roles?
There are actually a lot of different reasons maybe kids would want to explore vaping.
Mhm.
Uh, there's the curiosity of it. So just what is this about? I'm wondering. I've seen people do it. I'm wanting to know myself what that is. So there's curiosity. There's also the flavors. So a lot of vapes come in a variety of different flavors like mint, candy, fruit, chocolate, strawberry lemonade, whatever it is.
Unicorn.
Yeah, there's there's a lot of appeal there because you know why wouldn't you want to eat something that's tastes good or I'm sorry, ingest something that tastes good.
Sure.
Stress management, which we touched on. There's a lot of pressure in our county in particular for academic achievement, to be able to get into a good college. You want to be able to try and secure a scholarship. A lot of the SROs I've talked to at several Douglas County schools have mentioned that as something that youth have shared. It's a way to cope with stress, anxiety, and also social situations. There's a lot of kids too who maybe have a harder time being in social situations, so it can provide relief in that respect. Also, there's the perceived notion that using vapes is safer than a traditional combustible cigarette. So there's still the lingering thought that, oh, it's water vapor. It's just flavored water that, and that's not true. And then there's the peer pressure angle, which you touched upon, and you're talking about the pressure to fit in. So, if you're in a group of people, you want to be able to have that commonality, that common activity. So I know that for social situations, actually vaping, I think for a lot of kids can provide that commonality, some way for them to engage and connect.
Sure. And I know to that point, so much of this is really geared, the market for these are geared towards getting youth addicted to them. I mean, you mentioned the flavors earlier, a lot of that, I think there's been quite a bit of research talked about like how highly addictive these are to be marketed specifically to teens. I think to help people understand, and you mentioned a term SRO a minute ago, so I want to clarify what an SRO is. So anybody that's listening that doesn't know that, we're ensure that we're up to date on the language here. But part of what makes this a unique situation is how accessible these products are and the fact that they were geared towards teens in the first place. Can you share with us more about that accessibility piece and just why it's so easy for teens to have access to this in the beginning?
Absolutely. One of the things I do want to touch on too with peer pressure and accessibility, because they are so accessible and a lot of kids, their friends do have them, and not always knowing what the harms are and some, just misperceptions of like Alyssa mentioned, it's just water vapor. So if someone doesn't really know what the true harms are and then they offer to a friend, they're like, oh, it's totally healthy, it's fine, it's not harmful at all. Try this product. And it's a quick little puff for a kid and that nicotine starts to take effect. So I really do think that with the peer pressure, it is just a lot of, not always knowing the harms. And that's why, prevention work is so important for that. As for the accessibility part of it, vape products are everywhere. They're very, very easy to get online. I know that, doing just a little extra research and trying to look up a few things for this podcast to make sure we're up to date on the most recent information because there's always new products that are coming out. Usually you go to a website and it'll just say, are you 21 or over? And I click, yes, I am 21 or over. But for a lot of kids, if they're not, it doesn't matter. They're not checking anything. Same thing with, products being delivered. If they're able to order them online, they're not checking anything. They're able to, they have such easy access to these products. And there's so many different ones. If they can't get access to one, there's, a million more out there that they can get access to. Same thing with, certain shops and things that do sell these products. If they're not checking IDs properly, if they, have a friend who, has an older brother who's able to get those, and then they're willing to turn around and sell it to the youth for an extra buck. It really, there's so many different ways that youth can get access to these products as well as many other harmful products. They're very smart with technology. They know what they're doing and the products are out there everywhere. So it really makes it very challenging. Even though there are a lot of different laws and like right now in Colorado, you have to be 21 or over to purchase those products in the store, hoping they check IDs, which, a lot of places do. But again, like I said, if they have those older brothers, older sisters, anyone that is over that age that's willing to go ahead and buy those products and turn around and sell them, it's very easy access for them.
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. To piggyback off of what Ashley was talking about as far as online ordering, there are some TikTok accounts that promote discreet shipping services that can conceal e-cigarettes. When they arrive in the mail, they can be hidden in cosmetic cases. Not visible to the naked eye about what the product is. So it can escape parental oversight. Also, as far as accessibility, parents too can play a role in that. A lot of youth can get their vaping products from their parents specifically. Whether they take it without the parent's knowledge, or perhaps even the parent wants to provide something that they think isn't as harmful.
Well, and again, I think that's why it's so important for us to have education about this and, those risks and dangers. I mean, people saying it's water vapor. At the end of the day, it is in fact water vapor that's filled with chemicals. And, it's kind of like if you read the back of a food label, if you can't pronounce it, it's probably not good for you. And I venture to guess if you were reading the back of the label of a vaping product, aside from there are probably warnings that come in these packages, it's probably not healthy for you either. So there is more to the story than just the narrative of it's just water vapor.
Also, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt,
No,
but
go
also
ahead.
too, even some of the products that, are included in vapes to add the flavoring, that flavor might be considered safe amongst food products when you are, eating those products and ingesting them. But having it be, a vapor into your body, they don't have studies on that. So what might be safe to, intake one way is not always safe the opposite, a different way. So it really is, there's just a lot of chemicals, a lot of harms that come with it.
Well, and it's unfortunate that, the outcomes of this take years and years to play out. And it's usually because bad things have happened to somebody. And then we study it and know that, oh, that in fact was not good for you after all. So, again, we've seen that play out across a continuum of many different products and things that people have become addicted to. But, it really is unfortunate that the awareness around the dangers of this is not more prevalent. I mean, I know there are, campaigns that have been specifically aimed at teen vaping and cessation of those products. But I mean, the awareness of the dangers of it to me seems like the important part of the conversation. I guess moving into that, like what are some of the risk factors that we're seeing from vaping use and how can this negatively impact your health or your mental health, et cetera?
Well, I'd love to go back to something that you mentioned before
Please.
about, the harms really are not known. Thinking back to when vaping did start becoming popular, it was marketed as this is safer than cigarettes. This is safer than general combustible cigarettes. Use this product instead. It's healthier. It's better for you. And so I think that really, it's the marketing ploy there. I think they did a wonderful job marketing to try to make people believe that they were getting a product that, yes, there might be less chemicals in it, but it doesn't mean that it's still not harmful. And so it's, just because it's a little less harmful than this product, or we, don't know all the information yet, but I think it is really, people really thought they were getting into something that was a little bit healthier, a little bit less harmful as well. So, but yeah, as for the harms, there are, I mean, like you said, it's a newer product. We don't always know what the harms are. Right now, there's not a lot of studies on the long-term effects because vaping is it's still relatively new. It's only been around about a decade or so. So while the short-term effects are, starting to become more relevant, the long-term effects, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see what those truly are. But I mean, some of the regular effects that there are, or the harmful effects, would be shortness of breath, a lot more coughing. It is chemicals. There are a lot of unknown chemicals, some, heavy metals and toxins that are included in these products that are getting into kids' lungs. So there could be some lung damage that does occur. The nicotine part of it, so the addiction part, it really is very harmful for kids because the amount of nicotine is a little bit more as well. And so while they think that it's relieving their stress at the time being, once they, start to go into those withdrawal symptoms. So, feeling a little jittery, shaky, nervous, starting to, it's that dependency on it. Those harmful effects are really dangerous. And then the kids, tend to use a little bit more of their product. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So
I guess to that end there, I'm really wondering, you know, and again, this is just me kind of thinking off the top of my head here, like I'm assuming the social acceptableness of it compared to traditional cigarettes also plays a role in the amount of usage that kids are using. Like they're using them more frequently, they're easier to conceal. Like, is that accurate?
Yes. So just to go back to some of the health impacts of vaping, Ashley touched on a few of the impacts. And she also mentioned that there's a lack of research because we don't have decades worth of studies done like with traditional combustible tobacco products. So we're just moving into the point where we can start to understand some of the long-term impacts that vaping has. You can also people are reporting headaches, burning lungs. Some people are having panic attacks, fast heartbeat. There's a lot of a lot of behavioral effects as well, including irritability, anxiety, stress. It can bring about depression. And heavy nicotine intake can lead to heart disease, and that includes hardening of the walls of the arteries and increased blood pressure. Continuous use of vaping products can eventually lead to heart attacks and permanent lung damage. So we're starting to see some of these things come about, the longer vapes have been on the market. Regarding concealment for vaping products, moving back to more of the marketing aspect of a lot of these vaping companies, the vaping industry, they've recycled tactics that have long been used by big tobacco. It's about creating an image, a lifestyle, showing young, attractive people having fun, with their friends. They promote the products through fun colors, flavors, images. So I think that the vaping industry, they've been successful through promoting vaping as a healthy lifestyle, when in fact it's very unhealthy. And nicotine in itself is a pathway to addiction, particularly for younger people. Nicotine can interfere with the processes critical to memory, to learning, to focus, impulse control, and brain development. Young developing brains and nicotine essentially don't mix. So vaping can change, it can end up changing the architecture of young brains by causing cognitive change and rewiring brains for further addictions. So you'll hear the term gateway drug. Nicotine is considered a gateway drug that can lead you into using some other more harmful substances.
I think too, going off of, adding further to it, typical to cigarette use before, people would have to go outside to take a cigarette break because when you start a cigarette, you have this product now, you're either supposed to finish it or put it out, dispose of it somehow. Whereas a vape is it's a device that people can keep in their pockets at all times. It's battery powered, so you're not actually using a lighter to light it up. There's not this cloud of smoke that is continuous with it. If there is, the puff of smoke that comes with it, one goes away a lot faster. They have a lot of products now that barely have any puffs of smoke too. So it is very, very easy for someone to hide that kind of product. And it doesn't smell like a typical cigarette. It smells like gum. It smells like mint. It smells like so many different things that, I've walked through a store before. I walked through, an area where someone has clearly had a vaping product, but I'm like, it smells like pancakes and syrup. And that one, I always remember that pancakes and syrup smell before because I didn't know it was a vaping product. And I was like, that smells absolutely delicious. And I was indoors somewhere. This was quite a few years ago, but to me, it was an attractive smell. It was cool. What could that possibly be? Is it, a candle? Is it an oil or something? But instead it's a vaping product and it's much more attractive than cigarette use. Whereas if you, walk by and you smell someone that is smoking a cigarette, there's a very different, distinct smell to that. There's much more of a stigma to that as well. Whereas vaping it's much cooler, especially with, social media influencers. And I mean, it's a quick puff, you put it away and it's no big deal rather than having to go outside and start up that cigarette, finish that cigarette, and then everything that comes with that. So it really is very, very different.
Well, and I
And
think
that,
to the point that social acceptability of it and it not being as, having all of the things that we experience with smoking, I think that has led to why it has gained such popularity. And I mean, to that smell and to the ease and it's not as frowned upon as smoking is in public. Like
There's no ash trail that goes with it either. Whereas, before with a cigarette,
it makes sense to me why people choose this as an option.
absolutely.
well, yeah, and just again to piggyback off of what Ashley was saying, the for youth, concealing the fact that you're vaping is relatively easy. Uh, the vaping industry, they make a lot of different products, hoodies, pens, highlighters. They've come out with what are called smart vapes.
The smart vapes.
Yes, they combine games and social media into one device. They it's hard to be able to pick out, what would be something that is traditionally used versus a vape. So, they've become very savvy.
Well, and I know you mentioned earlier, you mentioned nicotine pouches, and I think being this conversation is about vaping, we're getting a lot of great information, but nicotine pouches are also something that are gaining a considerable amount of attention and use at this point. Like, what should we know about this, and why is that important to have as part of this same conversation?
I feel like nicotine pouches are the new up and coming vape. Whereas cigarettes were the big issue before, and then vaping came along, and it's better for you. It's easier to conceal. There's a lot more, positive aspects to it. Now it seems like nicotine pouches are kind of the new vaping almost, where there are less chemicals included in them. However, nicotine is still included. A lot of them are tiny little pouches that you would just put between your gum or your cheek. And so it's, again, very easily concealable where you cannot tell the difference. They smell minty. It's just another product that, while it is being used as a way for some people to, stop using cigarettes, stop using vapes, more as like a nicotine replacement therapy. It's not a nicotine replacement therapy. They do have actual therapies for that, but it is something that, again, we don't have all the research on. This is brand new now. So really, like with vaping, it's the waiting game to see what true harms there are that come out of this. But, it's nicotine addiction. It changes the brain development in youth. Youth brains don't develop until they're over 25 years old. So that's a lot of time, even though a lot of these products are available to anyone 21 and over. 25 is the age where the brain is fully developed. And they're even saying now it might even be a little bit later than that for males first and then or females' brains develop a little bit earlier, but still it's another new product that's out there. It's being marketed with very strategic marketing tactics, and we're gonna have, it's the waiting game to see what true harms continue to arise out of this.
Well, and to be clear, you used the words nicotine addiction a minute ago. Regardless of how you choose to ingest or partake in nicotine, all of these are nicotine addictions or can lead to nicotine addictions.
Absolutely.
I think that's a key takeaway here in recognizing that while one may be more socially acceptable or it doesn't smell or it doesn't have all the stigma that traditional smoking does, it is still the same effect. And if I heard you correctly earlier, I think, Alissa, you mentioned that the percentage of nicotine in vape specifically is often higher than it would be in cigarettes, which when you started talking about the symptoms that people are experiencing as far as physical health symptoms, like it makes perfect sense that it would speed up your heart rate or cause anxiety or perhaps a panic attack. Like you're ingesting more of those chemicals that kind of, that can elicit these kind of harmful effects.
It's that dependency, absolutely, where if you start with a product or for many products, and then if you're not using that product, your body is dependent on it. It wants that product and inside of your body. And eventually you're going to need to keep on, increasing the amount that you take and how many, puffs of your vape that you take or how many nicotine pouches to get that feeling. You're constantly chasing that dopamine rush.
Right. Being that you guys are with the health department, which is why I'm really fascinated in having this conversation with you, because I see you guys as kind of the boots on the ground, community experts of this. What steps are being taken by the health department or schools or other organizations to really kind of address what I would consider an epidemic, so to speak, regarding youth vaping?
So,
Go
sorry,
ahead, Ashley. No, you go ahead.
So being community health educators, it's that education portion. As we said, it's not just with the youth, it's with everyone in the community, educating parents, families, community partners, everyone on what the true harms of vaping are. Because as we mentioned before, the marketing of it was, this is better for you, this is healthier for you, but without actually saying that there are still a lot of negative effects of those products. So really educating people on what the impact is of that, educating families, educating parents on what to look for if they start to notice some changes with their teens, their youth, to see, is your child starting to use these products? Because anyone can start using a product, and if you become addicted because of the nicotine, it is very, very hard to stop. And there are, youth and adults and everyone that start a product that might want to quit, but it is very hard to quit. So I think really just getting that education out there, as well as having a lot of conversations about non-punitive and non-punitive measures that people can take, schools can take for when they do catch a student vaping. We, rather than trying to punish a student and scolding them and telling them, this is bad for you. Well, I think we're all starting to learn it's bad for you, but we're not really taking the time to educate why it's bad or getting to the underlying reason why the student or youth might have started using that product to begin with, and really taking the time to try to help them towards, learning all the information so that, if they choose to quit, because it is a choice. If someone wants to stop using a product, they need to have the motivation to do that, but really, giving them the resources, the tools, the support to be there for them, to help them through that, rather than just saying, don't vape, it's bad for you. You need to stop this. Well, yeah, they do know they need to stop that, but it's a lot more challenging than, people think it is.
Well, I've heard it's one of the most addictive things to get off of.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alissa. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, as the health department, what Ashley was speaking about, we do a lot of education regarding prevention. So preventing youth from ever starting. That's the best way, to essentially ensure that you never become addicted, is to never start. Also, we provide a lot of support for quitting. So we're very much trying to promote cessation resources for those individuals who are interested in quitting. So we've actually developed quick kits here at the health department. They're kits that contain a lot of different items that can help bring you to the point where you're in the mindset, you're wanting to quit. So they're essentially engagement tools, and we provide those here at the health department. And we also have been working closely with the school district to ensure that those resources are available for students who need help, who need help in quitting.
Right. So, I mean, not only are these preventative conversations, you actually are going the next step of recognizing that there are people that are addicted and we need to serve them as well. I think that's fantastic. I go back to having non-punitive conversations. And, if I'm a parent or a caregiver or somebody that supports youth and understand that I have a loved one or somebody that I care about that's addicted to this, what I'm hearing from you as a starting point is really kind of that listen and learn approach. Like, let them share with you kind of what their take is on their usage and maybe how they got there and what it's alleviating before you move into this, oh, it's bad for you and you shouldn't do it. Like, I think we can all agree that that's likely the outcome that people land with, but that's not the starting point in having kind of healthier conversations that move us towards, move us beyond addiction, right?
Absolutely. And like you said, it's conversations. It's not a lecture. It's not, I'm the adult, I know better than you. It really is a conversation, asking your teens, your kids questions. Do you know what these products are? Have you seen them before? Do you have any friends that use them? Even going as far as saying, have you ever considered using it or have you used these products? But like you said, really being a listener and not being judgmental and not getting ready to go back into that, well, you should not do this. It's hey, if your child's having the opportunity to talk to you and you're there to actually listen and not get upset with it, that's a wonderful start. And for some parents, they're not going to be what we like to call the trusted adult in their kid's life. Not that the kids don't trust them, but they might have a coach, a teacher, someone else in their life that they look up to that they might feel more comfortable talking to. And so it's accepting too that, your child might not want to talk to you, but really trying to, make sure that your child does have someone to talk to. And like I said, just start those conversations, make it a conversation where you can talk back and forth and really listen, because things are very different than how when we all grew up. Obviously, things change all the time and pressures are different. Stress is very different now. So really just talking to your kids, talking to, them about what's going on in their lives, not just about vaping, but anything. So really, again, putting pressure on that non-judgmental part. You're there to just be an ear and try to help the best you can without going into, don't do this, this is horrible for you. It's doing that. And then your child's probably gonna be more likely to talk to you about other things as well.
Well, and we've heard that in so many conversations, to reiterate that point, like really being, open-minded to having these kind of honest, unashamed conversations is really so important in getting kids to open up to you today, and recognizing it may not happen in the first conversation. You may have to have a follow-up conversation, but coming from that place of wanting to learn and understand. And I also think you made a point a minute ago that's so important and valuable, is being honest about your own struggle. If you've struggled with something that you had a really hard time giving up or letting go of it, take your pick. I think so many of us are addicted. I mean, technology, like the phone in our hand. I mean, I spend more time on social media than I'd like to admit to, but it doesn't mean a shaming conversation is going to fix it. So I think that listen and learn approach is really, really a helpful thing.
Absolutely.
Alissa, I know when we were planning for this conversation, you mentioned the kind of environmental impacts that people don't even think about, of vaping and how combustible these devices are. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I don't think most people even think about anything beyond I'm vaping and using this device. Like, what do we need to know about the environmental impacts?
Sure. So vaping and using e-cigarettes, it goes beyond the health effects. There are several other effects too. So e-cigarettes, they contain nicotine and lithium batteries, making them hazardous waste. So a lot of people don't know that your vapes are actually considered household hazardous waste,
Oh.
and can't be thrown away in the garbage, like you would anything else.
Even though most
So
people do.
I was gonna say, I wonder how many people really know that.
yeah,
It was something newer that we learned more recently too with this work, is that, you're not supposed to just throw them away with regular trash.
Okay.
yeah, and they're single-use plastics, so they're bad for the earth. Nicotine, it's toxic. So the liquid nicotine in e-cigarettes can be easily absorbed by the skin, causing nicotine poisoning, symptoms or difficulty breathing, fainting, or even seizures. Nicotine can also it harms fish, aquatic life, wildlife. It's toxic. It can cause nicotine poisoning, and it can even be lethal. So lithium batteries too contained in vapes when those are damaged, so if you throw away a vape in a, in the regular trash can, what can happen is if those, if the lithium batteries are damaged, they're flammable. So
Okay.
they can create fire hazards. A lot of trash compactors, if they're compacting the trash and a lithium battery were damaged, it could ignite. Um, so yeah, it can cause fires, if through transportation or at waste facilities. Um, so yeah, just throwing away vapes is is detrimental for the environment. Also, um, it's important to know too that vapes can be vapes. I mentioned nicotine poisoning. They can be harmful for young children who might be in a house. So children under 5, calls to the poison control centers have gone up dramatically um, over the last few years since more people have been vaping. So, kids like to explore the world around them by putting things in their mouth. A few drops of e-liquid can be lethal for toddlers. Um, Also, vapes can be harmful to pets. So I think a lot of people don't think about, your pets. It happens all the time. If you have a dog or cat, they get into things. So your vapes can actually be very harmful if you have pets. It can cause nicotine poisoning or eventual or death.
So some of the unintended consequences are, improper disposal can really lead to, or improper proper securing of a device can lead to some pretty nasty consequences. Help us understand, like, while we're not recommending vaping by any stretch of the imagination, if somebody is choosing to vape, like how do they dispose of those products properly?
Can I go back to one thing though, really quick, just
Absolutely.
because it's not just the improper disposal of them though, too. Like a lot of products, because it's a lithium battery, there have been some vaping products that have exploded on their own. If they've been most of it's happened while they've been being charged, but there
Okay.
have been some faulty products out there that, there have caused some injuries because they
They've
just,
exploded while people are using them.
yes. So it's not even just the improper disposal. It's these products can be very dangerous in general. So it's really, yeah, there's a lot of harms that go with it, that really everyone should be aware of.
Right.
Going back to your question then about just some resources and information that's out there. Is that what you asked? Sorry.
No, I wanted to know how, before we get there, how we properly dispose of them if you're going to partake in vaping.
There are disposal sites. Unfortunately for Douglas County, a lot of them are not near us. You can take vapes to hazardous waste disposal sites. So I believe that the several I think the Highlands, Ashley, help me out here, is the Highlands Ranch. Um,
There's one in Boulder, and then there's another location. Um, they're both further north for that, but there is information on CDPHE, which is the Colorado Department of Health Prevention Education. So there is information on there, as well as if you go to our Douglas County website, there is some information about where some of those sites are for disposal.
So I guess we know why people are throwing them in the trash.
Yes,
yeah, it's
it,
very hard to get rid of them.
Right.
yeah, and again, it's still one of those. I think it's one of those things too that a lot of people don't realize the true harms of it. And so the environmental part too is we're still learning a lot more about that. And so hopefully in the future there are a lot more disposal sites and more information that goes out with the product when it's sold on how to safely dispose of them. So
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
some reusable products as well. Not saying those are any better because they're all horrible for you, but yeah, it's a lot of those single use ones that people are just throwing in the trash, and then like any other product, it's going to have a lot of different harms from that.
yeah, and I forgot to mention too that the nicotine, it can seep into groundwater, so it can contaminate water supplies.
I mean, these are all great things to know. I mean, who would have known? Like, I really appreciate the education that you guys are giving us here today. And I mean, from start to finish, without question, we can ascertain that vaping is not healthy for you, like, for a myriad of reasons. But I guess looking next steps, I mean, if I'm a parent, I'm a caregiver, somebody that supports youth, like what are the resources that are available? I mean, you gave us some great tips a minute ago about just having these kind of unashamed conversations, listening and learning. Like, what are some more practical things? I know the health department has taken some steps to help with resources to quit, but where does somebody begin?
There's a lot of great online and anonymous resources too, because I think there is a fear of the punishment of it. If, especially, for youth, they are underage, it's not legal for them to use. They don't want to get in trouble with their parents. So there are some really great quit lines and things. Colorado Quit Line is one that is for 18 and over, but it's anonymous. And there are some incentives and things too to try to motivate people to quit. But also My Life, My Quit it's a teen focused quit line that there's a text version of it. It kind of provides the support, whatever support someone needs, because I might like to talk on the phone, but Alissa might like text messages only, or just daily reminders, just different, motivation tips and ways to try to help someone quit with that. So there are some different hotlines available. There's a lot of resources available on the truthinitiative.org. Our website, the Douglas County Health Department website, we also listed a lot of great resources on there because everyone's quit journey is going to be different. Everyone's an individual and what works for one might not work for another. So there's a variety of incredible resources on there that hopefully will fit the needs of, whoever is looking to quit, that will help to motivate them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and there
great.
just to piggyback to um there is also for those moms out there who are expecting, we have Baby and Me Tobacco Free, which is a great resource for pregnant moms, moms who have just delivered, or moms who have small children. It's important to be able to, if you're an adult who vapes, to be able to move into the direction of quitting, just because it's helpful for everybody in your family.
Right.
And these resources are free. Like I said, a lot of them are confidential. Or, speaking with your doctor, your provider, your pediatrician, if you are a youth, because there is, like I said, there is some nicotine replacement therapy. It's not the nicotine pouches, but they have, the gums, the patches, things to try to, decrease that nicotine level until hopefully someone can completely get it out of their lives. And so while a lot of places will not sell those products to youth, but working with a pediatrician under their supervision, if youth is in need of those products, they do have those options available. So it's, talking to your doctor too, if that's what fits best for you. But just, again, having those open conversations, realizing that youth were targeted for this. They still are being targeted for this. So it's not, I don't want to say it's not their fault, but it is something that, without all the proper information, they might have started without realizing how bad this was going to get. And so just knowing that quit journeys are going to be different for everyone, but it's important to try to start those journeys and, to give yourself some slack, forgive yourself, and know that it's going to take a lot of time. A lot of people don't quit on the first time. So it usually takes, I want to say the statistic is like 7 to 8 times to quit something before it really sticks. So that's how powerful, these dependencies are for these products. So it really is just find what works for you, find your support system, explore all the different websites, the different helplines, and see what works best for you.
Well,
Yeah,
and
we
such
have on our website, the Douglas County Health Department website, we have pages specifically devoted tobacco use prevention and cessation. So the information is compiled there.
Okay, great. I mean, I think this is such practical information and just, coming back to the reality of, our youth are being marketed to become addicted to these products. And how it happens doesn't change the fact that if somebody's already addicted to it, we're going to have to take a different course of action. So really, continuing to have these conversations that educate us, like you guys have done so beautifully today, and really make us more aware of what's going on. I think that's the starting point of recognizing we can do more and we have to have more conversations around this, and realizing that complete abstinence is probably not a realistic goal, but with every conversation we may inspire other conversations that lead to healthier outcomes. So I want to thank you both for the work that you're doing with the health department and really taking initiatives like this and others and bringing them to the community and making them more aware. It's important.
Well, we thank you for, having us on this. This is wonderful, all the different topics and different information you're trying to put out there for everyone, the families, youth, everyone for all these different issues. So like I said, it's important to learn about all of this and just realize that, there are amazing people out there to listen and try to help. And there are a lot of resources out there for everything.
You are
Yeah,
correct about that.
we appreciate you, Jason, and the work you do and bringing light to a lot of these different topics and issues that we have.
Well, likewise, I appreciate that. One question I like to ask our guests before we leave is, what does nobody's perfect mean to you?
Ooh.
I I think nobody's perfect. The thing that initially comes to mind is acceptance and acknowledgement of all of us and our uniqueness, what makes us special. So it's celebrating that.
I love that.
I completely agree with Alyssa on that. And then also just, be happy with things that you've already achieved. Still set goals, because goal setting is incredible, and it's something that everyone should be doing. It's a, great way to live your life, especially for youth, thinking about their goals in the future to try to avoid vaping and other, harmful substances, but also just, be proud of who you are, how you've gotten there, and know that there's always going to be struggles with things, and hopefully you can get through it. And if you feel like you can't, there are tons of people out there to help, including us here at the health department, schools, this podcast. It's just, there are a lot of, again, resources, information out there. I know some of it's really hard to navigate sometimes, but there are a lot of people that want to try to help you do that. So if, no one is perfect and no one's ever going to be perfect, but that's perfect for how you are.
Beautifully said. I couldn't have said it better myself. I want to thank you for being part of the Nobody's Perfect community dedicated to supporting, inspiring, and empowering youth and families. We hope you enjoyed today's transformative conversation. Together, we're dismantling stigma and providing solutions for mental health and well-being challenges so everyone can thrive. Join us every other week on cozy101.com/imperfect or on your favorite streaming platform to continue embracing our shared human experience. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, visit nobodysperfect.community to get immediately connected to a hub of clinically approved mental health resources and tools designed to support you wherever you find yourself on your journey. And be sure to follow us at Nobody's Perfect Community on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I'm your host, Jason Hopcus, and it's been a pleasure having you here. Stay connected, stay inspired, and remember, nobody's perfect because perfection isn't real. Your story is. Until next time.